Say hello.
Hi.
You have to forgive us. I had surgery a week ago, and yeah, that should explain a lot.
Do you ever find yourself surprised by how little you know about something, despite that very something being so common? I recently encountered this situation when I went to grab a slice of cheese from the refrigerator, in which I then found myself asking, where does cheese come from? Putting into consideration my love of cheese and my thirst for answers, I referred to the works of experts in order to enlighten myself on the truth behind cheese and its history. Cheese is something that many people throughout the world consume, and yet something many may know little about, whether it be cheese dip or pizza, or maybe just a simple sandwich. Cheese is found in many foods regularly eaten today. Today, I aim to inform you on some of the major characteristics of cheese. The characteristics I will be focusing on are cheese's history, when the first cheese was made, and the different kinds of cheese. First, I will discuss the somewhat murky history of cheese through providing a rough timeline of its history. Next, I will follow that information on when the first cheese might have been made using evidence that narrows down when cheese could have existed. Finally, I will go into detail on some of the different kinds of cheese, such as soft cheeses and hard cheeses. To start off, let us make some sense of cheese's history. The known history for cheese is somewhat limited, but through various pieces of evidence, we have a rough timeline of major events. Starting with when cheese was created, there is evidence that supported that the process of creating cheese existed as early as the 6th millennium BC. According to Tunick, author of The Science of Cheese, archaeologists analyzed residue found in ceramic sieves in Poland, with their findings proving that cheese was being made in Poland during the 6th millennium BC. We also have evidence that tells us when cheese was recognized and categorized by humans. Dalby, author of Cheese, A Global History, states that the Sumerian word for cheese was found in texts from the late 3rd millennium BC, allowing us to know that cheese was recognized as cheese as far back as that point in time. This statement is furthered by the addition that different kinds of cheese were recognized in said Sumerian texts, such as white cheese and sharp cheese, telling us that organizations of cheeses had already existed by that point in time. Now that we have dug into the history of cheese some, and its known timeline, when was the first cheese made exactly? As for when the first cheese came to be, there is currently no clear answer. But there are a few pieces of evidence that have been gathered that may provide us with an estimated time frame. We have archaeological evidence that tells us how far back in time cheese was being made, which consequently also tells us the first cheese must have been made by that time. Referring back to Tunick's explanation from earlier, ceramic sieves in Poland proved that cheese was being made during the 6th millennium BC. So we know that the very first cheese is at least that old. Another piece of evidence suggests that the date of the first cheese cannot be before 8000 BC due to a need for the ability to digest lactose, which is found in cheese. Dalby points this out that the origin of dairy farming is connected to humans gaining the ability to consume lactose. So early cheeses, being a dairy product, would have its time frame tied to this gained ability. Dalby elaborates on this with how cheeses that contained minimal lactose would have been too complex or lengthy to make at the time. So milk products, including cheese, would have been impossible to consume. So dairy farming would have had no purpose until lactose could be consumed. As for how lactose could be consumed, Nathan, author of Food, Genes and Culture, Eating Right for Your Origins, states that a mutation occurred in Northern Europe around 10,000 years ago that allowed humans to digest lactose, and that this mutation spread through populations, giving many humans the ability to consume milk, as well as cheese, by around 8000 BC. With us now having a better idea of when the first cheese was made, let us now learn of some of the different types of cheese. There are many different types of cheese that each have varying characteristics that define them. The first type of cheese is fresh cheese. According to Foster, editor for Cheese, types, nutrition, and consumption. Fresh cheeses include mozzarella, ricotta, and Neufchâtel. He continues with how fresh cheeses have more whey in their composition and a more acidic taste compared to other cheese types, with the cheese's texture specifically described as soft, juicy, and creamy. Next, we have soft cheeses, which are also described by Foster. He states that soft cheeses include surface-ripened cheeses such as Brie, Camembert, and Munster. He also explains surface ripening of cheeses as a process caused by bacteria and molds that affect the flavor and texture of cheese. He provides examples of this change, such as how Camembert goes from a crumbly texture to a creamy texture. We then have semi-hard cheeses to explore. Foster explains that semi-hard cheeses are composed of blue cheeses, such as Roquefort and Stilton, which are cheeses that are described as having green-blue veins because of fungi that cause them to ripen. Semi-hard cheeses are generally mild in flavor, with Foster describing many semi-hard cheeses such as Gouda, Maribor, and Stilton as such. After this cheese type, we have firm cheeses. According to Foster, firm cheeses are made up of Swiss-type cheeses, as well as the quite popular cheese we refer to as cheddar. There seems to be quite some overlap between firm cheeses and the next cheese type, hard cheese, as Foster describes many of the firm cheeses as hard, with provolone in particularly being mentioned as ranging from semi-hard to hard depending on its age. Our final cheese type is hard cheese. Foster states that hard cheeses, due to long maturation, have minimal water, leaving this type of cheese to be quite dry and crumbly in texture, as well as strong in taste. He states that such cheeses include Pecorino Romano, Grano Padano, and Asiago. After this explanation of the different cheese types, we have now finished our investigation into cheese. We've explored some of the major characteristics of cheese. We looked into cheese's history to try and form a timeline of major events. We then narrowed down the potential date of the very first cheese's creation, helping us to get closer to answering the question of when the first cheese was made. Lastly, we learned of the different types of cheeses and how to discern them apart. So, with all this new knowledge regarding cheese, the next time you open your refrigerator to make a sandwich or maybe some cheese dip, will you truly know what it is that you were eating? Thank you.
Mom's still here. Hi. Bye.